All right, 3, 2, 1. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On tonight's show, I have a very special guest. Her name is Bethany Leger. I hope I pronounced that right. And she's written a book titled Physically In, Mentally Out, Navigating Your Exit from Watchtower. She published that May 9th, 2020. And I've also had some other XJW, well, that'll be the acronym for Jehovah's Witnesses, XJW people on my show talking about their experiences. One was Jack Pine, the other Mike Shumwell. But we're going to talk about her book, about what it takes for people to successfully transfer from that group into a life without that group, which also has a lot of perils involved. So she's going to talk about that. But I reached out to her a while back, and she kind of caught up with me. So I'm delighted that she took time out to talk about her experiences. So Bethany, are you there?
I am here. Thank you for having me on, William.
Great. Well, thanks for joining me. It's a delight to have you on. Can you talk a little bit about your background? I know you're in the Jehovah's Witnesses, but what, when your background led you to this point where you decided to leave the group?
Yeah, so a little bit about my background. I was born into and raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. My parents were devout Jehovah's Witnesses. Their parents were witnesses, so it was this multi-generational thing. I was what you call a solid publisher. I was putting in 8 to 10 hours a month, knocking on doors, going out in the ministry. My parents were, spiritual pillars of the congregation, as they would say. They were not flaky. We were not a flaky family, but we weren't a militant, like super strict family. As witness parents go, my parents were pretty liberal, like more on the balance side. Like I was allowed to watch MTV. I went to public school. I, held down jobs as an adult. My mother encouraged me to go to college, and that was a big no-no in witness world. You're not supposed to go to college. And so that was a big deal. I went, and I was the only person in my family to ever go to college, and I earned my undergraduate degree. So yeah, it's not like I was living on a compound away from society. Like on the outside, I look normal, but the ideology that I was raised in was just so bizarre. And I found myself from a young age having to compartmentalize everything. And that just really messed me up as time went on. But you can't really articulate that as a child. You just know that something in your gut's telling you something's wrong. But as a Jehovah's Witness, you learn to suppress your intuition. That's your heart. Your heart is treacherous, or that's Satan messing with your mind. So just like a few examples really quickly, I had a lot of worldly family. Worldly meaning non-Jehovah's Witness family. That was the term that they used. And I loved them. We had a good relationship. I went to visit them in different states, and some of them are in Europe too. Had a good relationship. But then 2 days later, I'd go to the Kingdom Hall, and they'd say, anyone who's not a Jehovah's Witness is going to die at Armageddon. So from a young age, that cognitive dissonance of like, these are good people. I love my worldly family. But if they don't convert to being Jehovah's Witnesses, they're going to die at Armageddon. So stuff like that, I couldn't reconcile the two. And my mother was always trying to rationalize it or explain it away that, oh, Jehovah knows the heart. He'll work everything out. He's a good God. And I think my mother's from that boomer generation. I think a lot of them use that line, but the official company line is that if you're not a baptized servant of Jehovah, you're not a baptized member of the organization, you will die at Armageddon and not make it into paradise. So being raised with like two value systems was really confusing and bothered me. And just as one more example, growing up, to kind of just give you a kind of an idea of what it was like as a child growing up in the organization. I have an older brother. He's 10 years older than me. And he got in trouble as a teenager. He was disfellowshipped or excommunicated, kicked out from the organization. And I'm like 6 years old. He's 16. It's probably like some minor offense, but they treated it like it was some major moral failing. And, this teenage boy, whatever he got into, and then got in trouble. But long story short, He got kicked out. He came back and for a few years, but then he fell off the face of the earth for 20 years. He was inactive. He was not an active Jehovah's Witness. And the thing that got me was, I loved my brother no matter what. I didn't judge him. I loved him unconditionally, but I would hear gossip and people talking trash about my brother. And, if he doesn't come back to Jehovah, he's going to die. So it was just crazy. It was like I was raised by very non-judgmental, balanced parents, but I was stuck in an organization and an ideology that were in conflict. And that, that shit got tiring.
At what age did you start kind of having second guessing, or when did those kind of questions arise in your mind?
It never sat right with me. So to have an age specifically, I don't know, as a teenager, just as time went on, I felt ill. It was making me sick. But so anyways, to kind of back up a little bit, I became the golden child. And of course, if my family was sitting here right now, if my parents were sitting here, they'd dispute that. They didn't explicitly say, it's all on you now, Beth. They weren't standing over me with a whip, but anyone who grew up in the organization, for viewers who might have been former Jehovah's Witnesses, anyone who grew up in the organization knows that JW culture thrives on image and drama and shame. So growing up, even though they didn't explicitly tell me everything's on you now, there was tremendous pressure to make sure that I didn't put my parents through another round of shame and drama. Like my brother was the screw up, but I'm going to be the one that makes the family proud. And again, I didn't judge him for any of that. I loved him. I didn't understand the politics and, the BS of the organization at a young age, but it became clearer and clearer as I got older.
And so you had problems, and you come from a family background in Texas of all of these Jehovah's Witnesses. What kind of steps did you start taking in your mind? Like, I want to live a life outside of this group.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the problem. Like I said, I was never happy as a witness. Always something always felt off, but I got baptized at 15 because that's what my peers were doing. If you want to gain the love and approval of your parents and your community and not die at Armageddon, you got to get baptized. So, but it was just such an awkward, boring, like corporate religion. I never connected to it. It never felt spiritual. It never felt right for me. And I was constantly suppressing my true nature. I was more creative and artistic. I loved to paint, but I just felt stuck. And there's an expression, I'm sure you've heard this, it's not the best marriage, but we're trying to make it work. That's how I felt as a witness in my late teens and 20s of like, this doesn't feel right, but I'm stuck. I've been taught this is the truth. Where am I to go to, Lord? So I have to make this work. So kind of to answer your question, I would congregation hop. I would travel, meet people in different congregations and try to work within my tribe, but they never really felt like my tribe. There's good Jehovah's Witnesses out there. I met good people, and tried to make something work that just, wasn't happening. I felt trapped.
And you talk about the ideology of JW. What are for people who aren't familiar maybe with some of the things that the group get you involved in, can you just discuss what actions by JW made you feel trapped?
Yeah, so they are taught that they have the one true religion. Every other religion is false. If you're not a Jehovah's Witness, by the time Armageddon rolls around, you're going to die. Everyone else, you should be suspicious of everyone. So, no one outside of the circle has good intentions. They may see, like, your classmate or your coworker may seem friendly, may seem helpful or whatever, but really they have an ulterior motive and they would kill you if given the chance. Just a lot of fear mongering, and not respecting your conscience. Something doesn't feel right. Listen to your conscience, your intuition, do what's best for you. No, you have to follow the rules or face the consequences. Just very rule driven.
But also the consequences, especially for children, are pretty extreme. Like you could get shunned, and those are pretty jarring events, even for an adult. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, exactly. See, and that's the thing. When you get baptized, it's a tractism. It's not a baptism, it's a tractism. You can't just leave because you will be shunned. But there's a judicial loophole. See, Jehovah's Witnesses have their own internal court system. And if you're not baptized, it's crazy. You can technically hold opposing viewpoints. You can do your thing and not get shunned by your family. You might get a little crap from them, but they're not going to completely cut you off just because you didn't get baptized. So it's kind of a crazy fun fact. There's a lot of people who don't get shunned. They were raised as Jehovah's Witnesses, but they don't get shunned, even though they're, living in sin and celebrating Christmas and doing whatever, because they weren't baptized at 10 years old. But if you were baptized at 8, 9, 10 years old, you're held to that standard for the rest of your life. Interesting.
And they're kind of like my discussions with other people. There's always this looming Armageddon that seems like it's right around the corner. Is that true?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, constant fear mongering of fire and fireballs coming out of the sky, people having nightmares, as kids, and you can't hang out with little Eric at school or little Stacy at school because she's not a Jehovah's Witness. They're not Jehovah's Witnesses, and they're going to die, like crazy stuff from the time you're a small child. And I know some people would say, I never believed that bullshit. And then, but a lot of people, they struggled with that. For me, I was kind of in the middle. I was, I had anxiety, but it never sat right with me. And it's the older I got, just there were cracks in the dam.
And did you have any impressions about the founder, Charles Taze Russell? Did anything come through? Was he considered kind of almost a prophetic figure? Or I don't really know what people in the church really thought of the founder of the church.
Right. It's interesting. There was not a whole lot of discussion or focus on him or Rutherford, who came after Russell. There's so much. I know that like Paul Grundy from jwfacts.com and John Cedars, Lloyd Evans of the John Cedars channel, they cover a lot of the history. But I remember growing up, it was like, oh, Charles Taze Russell, he restored true worship, but he's not the founder. He's not the founder. We model ourselves after the first century Christians. So, but I remember there was a lot of revisionist history, things that didn't add up. And there wasn't a whole lot of focus on the past. It was like, what's going on right now? And occasionally, if they did talk about Russell or Rutherford, it was always in a very positive light, not, any of the other things. Yeah.
It makes me think of Joseph Smith because they make the same, in Mormonism, they make the same statement. Joseph returned the true worship to the present. So Russell is somewhat similar. Also, you have a kind of an extra book in the Jehovah's Witnesses, right? An additional reading that's just as important as the Gospels. Is that correct?
But the organization definitely has their own translation, the New World Translation. Yeah. World Translation. And what's really funny about that with Russell is that a lot of the principles that Russell talked about, in the founding of the modern day Jehovah's Witnesses, he'd be considered an apostate today. He'd be shunned today. He used to say things like, and I can't specify exactly which magazine article this was. jwfacts.com is a fantastic resource for that. But he'd say stuff like, the minute we start using the word organization, we have problems.
Wow.
And then nowadays it's like, if you don't stay in Jehovah's organization, you're in trouble. You're going to die. So it's just crazy. And he'd say stuff like, don't impose your conscience on someone else, on your brother. Let him deal with Christ in his own way, or whatever. In so many words. But the governing body has completely hijacked people's conscience, and
Wow.
you can't just figure things out on your own, or be balanced or reasonable, or do what's best for you. You absolutely have to fall in line.
Yeah, I think there was a line in your book. It said the Rubik's Cube of Watchtower indoctrination. I like that phrase. So it's,
yeah.
So
yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Well, I mean, the thing is that like it's so prevalent. Right down my street, literally right where I live, is a Kingdom Hall. So I see people coming there. It's very nice. But it's just mysterious how, because because Jehovah's Witnesses don't really mix with other people as much as maybe some other Christian groups. So you don't get the insight as much.
Right.
But
it's a very, very isolationist culture. And again, like I said, for a lot of witnesses, I know I'm not the only one. A lot of witnesses are good, reasonable, decent people, but a lot of them were born into the organization, and because they're afraid to be shunned, they can't speak their mind or say, hey, are you thinking the same thing I'm thinking? Do you have doubts about this? You can't do that because you'll get turned in. So, you say there's a lot of mystery, and it's like this insular group, but it's like there are a lot of people inside that are like, I want out. Anybody else thinking what I'm thinking? So there's a lot of good people who are just trapped and frustrated or confused, who maybe don't want to leave, but they have certain issues that they know they can't really broach with the elders or with other people because they'll get in trouble for questioning them.
And you also wrote in your book that the Jehovah's Witnesses manipulate people's careers and talents to kind of put them within the church. Did you see example? Can you remember any examples of that happening to you or family members or people you knew?
Yeah, well, first of all, like I mentioned before, college is a big no-no. It's Satan's playground. Why? Not only, are you going to be exposed to sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but, why would you spend 4 years, in this worldly institution when you can get a spiritual education that's going to last into paradise? And they were telling people that in like the 60s and 70s that college was worthless. And guess what? The end of the world hasn't come yet. So right. Yeah, absolutely limiting their chances career-wise and financially. But also they need to be the center of your life. So like I remember reading articles about, like, oh, I was a ballerina, or I was an artist. I had a promising career. I found a lot of deep personal fulfillment from my craft. But then, somebody knocked on my door and showed me the error of my ways, that I really, gave too much attention to this thing. And I learned about this and that and became a witness. And now my life is really great and really rich. Like you can't have both. You can't have both. You can't be like, it's like, oh, I'm Baptist and I'm also a singer, or I'm, whatever, Pentecostal, and I, also do this. With Jehovah's Witnesses, you can't be something else. The organization has to take center stage. And I've just, seen people on a personal level and professional level, and reading their articles, just completely erase their personal identity and what makes them unique for the sake of the organization. When if you're being reasonable, it doesn't have to be that way. You can be spiritual and have your religious convictions, without completely erasing who you are. But that, nonetheless, there you go.
That's a very profound effect on the individual too, not just the group itself, but an individual where you're so involved. It's almost, into a coercive environment, right?
Oh, absolutely. You become the cult identity. And that's basically just the whole theme running through this, is that I had a good sense of myself, but I was constantly suppressing it. There's some people who are true blue believers. I believed it was the truth because I had very devout parents. I loved my parents, and I was just taking it in my whole life and didn't really rebel. Like I think I said in my book, like if I could go back in time, I would punch myself in the face. Like I was like really a good kid.
Well, you wouldn't be alone. People in coercive groups, you wouldn't be alone in that regard, because
Yeah.
I talk to people in Scientology, Mormonism.
Yeah.
They all kind of have that, like, why am I doing this? I interviewed a guy, Kramer, but it was the same thing. His family, his parents, there were so many other factors involved. And also just kind of being young and naive, you just absorb that, like, this is the truth. So somebody's telling me that. I grew up Catholic, and that was just Peter's church. No question. You know, all these other things are false. You know, you don't have to worry about anything. We've got it all figured out for you. I'm not saying it's like Jehovah's Witness doctrines, and people just go through intergenerationally. Were you dad a Catholic? You're a Catholic. And that was it.
Right. And you know, what's really interesting about that is, and I know I'm not the only one, there are other witnesses who went through this. You know, we were raised knocking on people's doors, telling them to question everything they were ever taught. Question your religious leaders. You know, are you a Catholic just because your Aunt Susie is a Catholic? Are you like almost guilt trippy? Like, question everything that you hold that's important to you, deeply, you know, cherished beliefs, and question things to the point that it's uncomfortable. Because then you'll find the truth. You know, study the Bible, read our magazines, of course, you know, because that'll take you to the truth. But was interesting, you know, hold up your belief system to all this scrutiny, but witnesses weren't allowed to do the same. And of course, I was young. I didn't catch that at the time, but I was older and I'm thinking, whoa, there's certain things that are not adding up. Why can't I question the governing body? Why can't I question this elder? This doesn't make any sense. You were telling me that's what I should tell other people, but yet we can't hold the organization up to that same scrutiny. So it's just a little hypocritical.
Yeah, it's interesting. And also that kind of involvement, you can see why you're not alone in many people in JW wanting to kind of come out of that coercion into it, just kind of a much more free, I would say, personal social life. I mean, it seems like you're just, you and Shemwell and these other people I interviewed all seem to be the same. Like they just want to listen to music and relax on the weekends, which for other people is just standard, but for Jehovah's Witnesses, it's a full-time job. I mean, it seems like. Is that correct? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and that's a good assessment. So, it's just you're constantly squeezed. You don't have any breathing room. And you're even I know other witnesses, if they're watching, or ex-witnesses, if they're watching this, you'd be guilted if you went on vacation. Like, no joke.
Wow.
Like I had a sister, a pioneer sister, somebody who puts in, like, I think it's like 70 to 100 hours a month preaching. I don't know the specific hour quota now, but I remember years ago, she told me, she was like, Bethany, I feel so guilty. I'm going to go on this cruise next week, and I feel like that's time I should be spending in the ministry. And in my head, I'm going, wackadoodle, wackadoodle. But like, she was my sister, and I had to be like, you know, you need a break. It was almost like I was subversive for suggesting she should enjoy a week vacation in the sun.
Right. But I mean, would you agree that you're kind of just building all of the witnessing and things like that? You're just building the church. Do you feel like is there a distinction about just building the church or building Christianity? You know, it seems like you're really trying to build up something.
Yeah, they, you know, the line was, when you went to someone's door, is, oh, we're just encouraging Bible reading. But we're not just encouraging Bible reading. Read our magazines, eventually with a view to studying and becoming baptized Jehovah's Witnesses. We're not just going out door to door just so you can read your Bible. There's an end game in mind, you know? And I don't mean that like for viewers or listeners, not like, I have like nefarious intentions, you know? Like, you know, they're good people. They're sharing their beliefs. They think they're doing the right thing, but it's not just to spread the good word and to love Jesus. There is the motive of getting them to study and convert and become witnesses.
Gotcha. And did you can you tell the audience the steps you took to leading up to you leaving JW?
Yes. So like I already described, was never happy as a witness. It never, it was never my jam, but I felt it was the truth. It's what I have to do. But I got married in 2015. He was a witness. Some of the viewers or listeners might know him as XJW Analyzer. He had a channel for a while when I was doing my channel, Stop the Shunning. But I couldn't have asked for a better partner. He was, there was no pressure. He didn't try to turn me into like this JW Stepford wife. Because there's certain types, like I was like your like baseline boilerplate witness. I was putting in 8 to 10 hours a month in the ministry. I was good. I was solid, but I wasn't like at the forefront, like a pioneer or anything like that. So it was a good match. That's just the bottom line to that. But that was in 2015. But even then, in the first few years of our marriage, we were believers, but together, together we started talking, and it was like there were cracks in the dam already. Things on both ends were, both people were like, okay, some things are not adding up, and we're talking. And my husband ended up starting to do research, and he started waking up to the truth about the truth, as they say, about 6 months prior. So it was like a 6-month lag. All I knew is intellectually, I didn't understand what was wrong. I just knew how I felt in my gut. And in 2017, spring of 2017, I basically had this nervous breakdown. I remember I was at a meeting and the circuit overseer was visiting. He's like the manager / CEO that visits quarterly or every semester to see if everyone's doing their job, come and check in on, the congregation and provide moral support and, that kind of thing. But he was on stage, and I remember he said, and mind you, I'm already like hanging by a thread. Like I am just, everything's coming to a head. He says, a lot of the friends are suffering from depression. Don't we feel bad for that? And I'm thinking like, yeah, this life is stressful. Being a witness, yeah, no wonder a lot of people are suffering from depression. But he says, a lot of the friends are suffering from depression. And he says, we should console the crushed in spirit and, offer a kind word at the right time or whatever. Then he said, and I remember because I had a very visceral reaction. He says, if this describes you, don't be selfish and think I need to stay home and take care of myself. You should be right in the center of Jehovah's organization. And it was like I had an outer body experience. I got up, I floated out of the hall, never stepped foot in a Kingdom Hall ever again, because that word was so triggering for me. My entire life, I had grown-ups, JW elders / clergymen, and cult indoctrination literature being pounded into my brain that I'm selfish. And I know I'm not the only one who feels this way. There's a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses that grapple with this guilt and shame and selfishness, telling me that I'm selfish. But of course, the opposite of being selfish is to do everything we tell you to do. It's a control strategy, and I got sick of being controlled. It's like, I'm in my 30s. I can't take this shit anymore. So I left, and that was the beginning. I then found the BITE model, developed by Stephen Hassan.
Yes.
Stands for Behavioral Information, Thought, and Emotion Control. And I'm looking at all the bullet points, and I'm like, holy crap. Like I said, intellectually, I didn't understand what was happening in my waking up process. I just knew that I didn't feel good. And then I'm thinking, the witnesses hit almost every single bullet point, save for 1 or 2. I thought, holy crap, they're a cult. This guy has no skin in the game. He's a professional. He's,
ex-Mooney, he went through the process. So
yes,
he was a Mooney. Yeah, sorry.
Right, exactly. He'd lived through it. And it's not like, here's the thing that got me though. It wasn't considered apostate literature. It was a professional that, created this model, and they just happened to objectively stack against the evidence. Everything came together. I was like, he's got no skin in the game. This just happens to be a cult. So So I was digesting that. And my husband kept tying back around. My husband kept doing research, and he'd come to me and he'd say, did you see this article? Did you see this? Did you know that blah, blah? And I was getting upset, not at him specifically, but I was really getting upset because I had a feeling it was true. And if it was true, I was going to have to do something. I was going to have to take action. So it was like, I love you, but please stop. Like, I can't process this right now. And he did. He backed off and he kind of let me have my own process with it. But then December of 2017, just to wrap this up, December of 2017 is like a switch went off. And I fell down the rabbit hole and just did a ton of research, and I couldn't stop. And I found out about the Australian Royal Commission, which for those who don't know what happened with the Australian Royal Commission, I think it was 1,006 cases of child molestation had occurred in the Jehovah's Witnesses congregation in Australia that were not reported to law enforcement. And that was one chunk. It turns out that the organization has a chronic systemic child sexual abuse problem that they've been covering up for decades. Barbara Anderson, people, if they want more information, Barbara Anderson, I think it's Bill Bowen of Silent Lambs, Gary or Bill Bowen of Silent Lambs has been researching this. Trey Bundy, another investigative journalist, has been looking into this. This is a chronic systemic problem. They have a secret database at their headquarters in New York with thousands upon thousands of names of known, predators and sex offenders that were never reported to law enforcement. So, I think it's safe to say that witnesses never leave for one thing. It's usually a combination of things, but it's like might be one thing that really sets them off. That was the thing that sent me over the edge. I just thought, what a disturbing legacy to leave behind. What a disturbing legacy. Child molestation, shunning people till they kill themselves. Right. No blood. Yeah. So so anyways, my husband and I ended up disassociating, sending in our disassociation letters in December of 2017, New Year's Eve. So we rang in 2018 as free people. There you go.
So you've been out for 3 years now. What was it like leaving with your parents and family, or I assume your social circle was built within the church? What was it like kind of adjusting to this newer reality?
So there was immediate relief, but of course there's fallout. First of all, like, as I mentioned before, I was always trying to create a tribe of friends that I clicked with in the org, but it never really happened. Like, I had some friends here and there, but so the loss of friends for me personally was not a big deal. Like, I knew it was coming. But my parents, I told them, I love you. You're always welcome in my life, but I can't live a lie anymore. I can't be something I'm not. I'm disassociating for these reasons, .. And, but it went nowhere. They're very devout, and, I can't change their mind. They call it conviction. I have reason to believe that it's more coercive mind control and decades of indoctrination that they've been marinating in, but it's not my life. So, I leave the door open, but I have to create closure for myself, and move forward with my life.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. What was it like adjusting to or meeting newer people outside of the church? What was your experience like that?
Well, again, for me, like everybody's journey who came from the organization, there's similarities and differences. For me, because I grew up around worldly family and went to college and went to public school or whatever, I had I get along with a rock. Like, it's like I have no problem like meeting people, and sometimes it gels, sometimes it doesn't. So I actually was okay in that regard, but it's awkward. You don't, that indoctrination does not go away overnight. It's like, I describe it like an onion. It's like you're peeling away layers, and it's smelly and weird. Like,
No, I
you
believe
know,
it. All this, you're you're in a group of maybe not just necessary, not specifically JW, but ex-Mormons, ex-Scientologists, so many Moonies
right.
that have to kind of process. I don't think it really, a lot of those people they don't just click it off in their minds. It's still with them. Their memories are there, their experiences are there. So you have to digest it, process it. That's a tough
Right,
position to
right.
be in.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. So like I was ready to do it, and I was excited, the world is my oyster or whatever. But I mean, whether you're religious or not religious, ex JW, ex Mormon, or whatever the thing is, friendships take time. Life, it takes time for certain things to click. So I'm not saying like once you leave, it's going to be super easy, to make friends. But it really depends on the person, and putting in the time and effort. And sometimes it pays off. Sometimes you click. Sometimes you don't. But at least with the witnesses, you have a built-in community, and love them or hate them, you're stuck with them. In this case, you get to find genuine friendships. Like I would rather somebody just be like, screw you, I don't like you. Okay, great. At least I know you're being honest with me.
right.
you know?
Interesting.
Yeah. Like,
And that's not the case within that church. It's interesting. So with your kind of the time adjustments in your life after 2017, how did you fill your time now that you didn't have to kind of do as much church stuff or Kingdom
oh,
Hall stuff, I should say?
yeah. You can just breathe. I won't speak for everyone, because everyone has their unique set of circumstances, but it's just amazing how much time and energy is spent just in busy work and in organizational activities, that it was just immediate relief. But I felt compelled to. I found the XJW community, so I went online, found John Cedars. He was instrumental in helping me completely wake up. I knew I was done, but having someone very clearly, calmly, rationally explain, no, you're not crazy. Like the organization, has a lot of, the organization's messed up. You're not alone. Other people feel the same way, but not in a way that was insulting or sensationalized. So I connected with his channel. He really helped me in my process. And then I was really I'm not going to say the word encouraged. That's another word that's like, because witnesses use the term encouraged all the time. I just triggered myself. But I was really motivated or inspired by the XJW community and wanted to do my part in whatever way I could. And the thing that was closest to my heart was the shunning issue. Because, that's what kept me in a lot longer than I ever would have stayed, because I was terrified of, being shunned, by my parents. And you live with that threat over your head for so long. It really does a number on you. So I wanted other people to be able to come to this space. I started the channel Stop the Shunning in 2018. I think it was like the fall of 2018. And, it was great meeting so many different people, hearing their stories, and just feeling that I did not create it. Some people would ask me like, people are going to, the parents are going to shun you anyway, or your cousin or aunt or uncle is going to shun you anyway. It's not for the people. When I say stop the shunning, it's not for the people who are doing the shunning. It was for people to heal, to be able to speak their truth, and also for the public. So like the next time that nice little old lady comes to your door with magazines, or, a well-dressed, man comes to your door with magazines talking about the Bible, this is the side they're not going to talk about. Intergenerational trauma from their shunning policy. The fact that I had a dear friend commit suicide last year. So yeah. So yeah, that's why I started Stop the Shunning. Sorry, my brain went off for a little bit.
But you go through a lot of trauma is the perfect word, leaving those groups. It's a brand new life step. You likened it to stepping off a cliff.
Yeah.
And your YouTube channel, again, is Burning Down the House. Can you say the names of people investigating sexual abuse within JW? Was Barbara what? What's her last name?
Barbara Anderson. She's the OG. She has been doing this for decades. In fact, I know she was on a Dateline special. I want to say like 2000 or 2001. I think you can YouTube it. And then, so Barbara Anderson, she was a Bethelite, which is a big deal. She was at the headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses for I don't remember how long, don't quote me on that, maybe 20 years or something like that. But she knew a lot of what was going on and was cracking that open. And then there was also, I think his name is Bill Bowen or Gary Bowen. I want to say Bill Bowen of Silent Lambs. I don't know if it's silentlambs.org or .com, but he's been covering this also. He was an elder that spoke out against their policy of protecting child sexual abuse, protecting the predator instead of the child in the congregation. So he started talking about that and investigating. And then Trey Bundy recently collaborated with Oxygen. There was a big Oxygen special about the witnesses, and a couple of former witnesses shared their story and got into greater detail. I'm not really the one I don't even really cover it in my book. There's John Cedars, Trey Bundy, those people I've mentioned, jwfacts.com, that really gets really detailed. I don't want to speak out of turn, but there's a lot of details out there and research that's been done on those topics. Those are really good resources.
Definitely looking in. And you're also a trained life coach, is that correct?
That's correct. I'm a certified life coach. I have a new YouTube channel. It's called Burning Down the House. And I talk about these themes of family dynamics, how to overcome family expectations and build a new life. So basically, burning down the house is obviously a metaphor for completely dismantling and destroying the expectations that your family constructed for you in the event that these expectations are harmful or hinder your growth and potential. So, like in Western culture, in Western society, there's this idea of the sanctity of family. Family is the sacred institution. We should never question it. And as a result, I'm seeing a lot of, grown adults who are brilliant, capable, decent, good people who are putting their lives on hold, who are afraid to have their own opinions and beliefs. And a lot of them end up being estranged or disowned for, their sexual orientation, their difference in religious beliefs or political affiliation, or their choice of career. It's just seeing these bright adults, these individuals terrified to be themselves because they don't want to rock the boat or cause problems in the family. So it's not anti-family. It's just, what do you do whenever your beliefs and values conflict with those of your upbringing? What do you do to find the emotional fortitude to move forward when mutual respect and compromise are not possible? How can we make that transition, from being a people pleaser or always putting yourself last to living a life that's personally resonant, one that feels right for you? So that's the goal with the channel. And I'm currently working on the book. I don't have a release date yet, but yeah, you can follow that journey on my channel.
Gotcha. So are you going to have a book of the same title? Is that your intent?
That is correct. Yeah, it's going to be Burning Down the House, How to Overcome Family Expectations and Build a New Life.
Gotcha. And then you also have a website. It's Bethany, BethanyLeger.com. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, the name, the last name is Cajun French. It's Leger. It looks, yeah, it's hard to pronounce, but yeah, Bethany Leger, exactly. BethanyLeger.com. I have my books on there. I have a link to my channel and, updates and news and stuff like that.
Awesome. And so people could reach out to you if they have any questions, maybe XJWs, people who might want some advice, could contact you at your website. Do you have any others? You have no other social media other than YouTube and that web channel, correct? Or website?
Yeah, currently I'm currently working on some other forms of social media, but yeah, for now I have my PMO book, working on my next book, and they can find me at Burning Down the House YouTube channel. But I might need to leave a link because it's really new, so they might not be able to find me in search results. But
but yeah. I can put that in the show notes. I'll make sure to put that in the show notes. So
okay,
again,
great.
Is there anything you'd like to add? Anything I missed, or anything you'd like to share?
You know, I just hope that if there are current Jehovah's Witnesses or PMOs that are watching, I just hope you find your freedom, you know, figure out whatever perspective shift needs to happen to put yourself first and to take care of yourself and your family. You know, I know it's really difficult to go through that process of being shunned. Read the book, you know, find the inner strength, find support systems, people that will love you and support you and be there by your side through that scary time, because it is a really scary time. You know, so basically that's it. I wish the best to those people who are still in.
I read your book. I'm not a Jehovah's Witness, but I found a lot of helpful insights or tips in there too. So again, the title of the book is Physically In, Mentally Out by Bethany Leger. The subtitle is Navigating Your Exit from Watchtower. Thank you so much, Bethany.
Thank you, William. It was great being on.
Awesome. All right. You still there?